Jailbreak. The cold, sterile hallway just outside of my confinement center wall made it possible to hear every footstep, growing louder as they neared me, fading as the person receded into the distance, marching to whatever task they were assigned. It was impossible to know how long I'd been here. Minutes felt like days. Hours felt like months. All I knew was that it was time. What was that quote from the Shawshank Redemption? Get busy livin' or get busy dyin'. It was now or never. I'd spent the last several months learning the patterns and rhythms of this facility, and I'd discovered that it was possible to make an escape undetected. It was, however, highly improbable. The odds of being discovered were astronomically high, and the consequences ranged from merely being returned to captivity, or, well, one simply had to come to terms with the risk being worth the reward. My mind was made up. The door to my cell was never locked, interestingly enough. The reality was I could walk out at any time, but that didn't make me any less of a captive. They knew that I couldn't just leave, and that made them reckless with this one very simple security measure. There were others here, too, held in similar circumstances as myself. If my plan was to work, if I could make my way to freedom, there would be new protocols put in place. The others would feel those consequences. That thought had kept me from trying to escape before, that my freedom would lead to their pain. But as the days and months wore on, I'd shoved those thoughts aside. Surely they had tried and failed at exactly what I'm attempting now. Did they consider how their success would affect me? I strongly doubted it. It was every man for himself in here, despite the words I'd heard time and time again as the guards and wardens walked past my cage. Sunlight flooded through the one small window behind me. It seemed as though it had been weeks of gray skies. The warmth on my skin was all the encouragement that I needed. It was now or never. I listened for the sound of 2 sets of footsteps coming down the hallway. This pair always made their way along the corridor at the same time every day, always together. After them, there would be 2 more, but this time in singles, a few minutes apart. Then it would be time. They all needed to see me, to know I was still here. Their complacency must remain intact for my plan to succeed. The faint sound of 4 feet making their way towards me finally could be heard. The steps grew louder, keeping pace with the increasing pounding of my heart as I knew the time had come. Louder, louder. My pulse began to increase. I had to bring it down. This cannot be done if I can't control my nerves. I felt my hands begin to shake a little, with the increased adrenaline. Sweat began to form ever so slightly beneath my arms. I had to get control. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly. Then another. Then another. I cleared my mind of what was about to take place. I didn't need to go over the plan any further. I knew it well. I just needed to move with calm deliberation. Another deep breath. I felt my heart rate begin to slow. Another deep breath. My hands steadied. Then the plodding footsteps came to a stop just beyond my door. "Hello in there," came the much too delighted voice of the middling drone on patrol. He was happy to be here, happy to be in the slightest position of power over me. Had a few things gone differently, maybe it would be me out there and him in here. I like to think that I'm better than him, though. I'd help with someone's escape plan if I was alerted to it, not ratted out. Or, at the very least, I'd look the other way, but not him. No, he derives meaning from this tiny amount of authority. I won't give him the satisfaction of getting even a hint of what I'm about to do. "Hello, sir," I reply back, attempting to soften the terseness that I want to convey. The woman who patrols with him never acknowledges me. I can tell she believes he should be more dismissive of me, that he should use whatever mediocre power he has to diminish my existence even further. Nice to see the sun shining again, isn't it? It is. Hopefully, you'll get to enjoy it fully soon. I know I will. I continued to myself. Perhaps, but my shift does run pretty late into the day, so maybe another time. The woman sighed with impatience. Well, I should carry on. See you on the next pass. Yes, on the next pass. Good day, sir. Their footsteps fade into the cavernous recesses of the facility to my right as I await the next set of footsteps. The waiting seemed to be the worst part of my plan so far. It gave my heart too much time to become anxious, so I tried to occupy my mind with thoughts of how the woman would berate the man if my actions were ever discovered, particularly if it became known that mere minutes after they'd passed, I'd made my move. A smile drifted across my face at the thought of it. She clearly had some type of authority over him, but I knew for certain it wasn't in rank. Perhaps it was in that same way that many women had authority over many men throughout all of time. The issues that my leaving will cause him, the erosion of his pathetic authority, brought a great joy to me that steeled my nerves for my next encounter. I heard the clicking of heels echoing in my ears, and I braced myself for another interrogation. This time, however, there was only a slight pause, and then hurried footsteps away down the hall. I heard a slight commotion and some raised voices, an uncommon occurrence that I hoped would resolve itself quickly. I strained to listen, to determine if this new development would derail my escape before it had even truly begun. "It's not what you think. Please? I just needed..." "You needed what?" It was the man who had just stopped and spoke to me. He must have backtracked and surprised the poor guy, who clearly had the same thoughts of freedom as me. Why did he choose to go now? The timing was way off for any chance of success. Pathetic fool. I cursed him under my breath, because now they'd be on high alert, if they weren't already. "Back in your cell. You don't come out until we say you can come out." I thought that was clear, but please, tell me if I need to make it more so. Do you want me to do that? No, sir. That won't be necessary. I'll have to report this, you know? You brought this on yourself. Perhaps the officers will have mercy. But it's really out of my hands. The silence that followed must have been the poor soul's sad acceptance of his fate. Finally, I heard everyone continue on their way, and I listened for the steps that would signal the beginning of my mission. I said a quick prayer that my outcome would not be the same as the one I'd just witnessed, while the third patrol made its way to me. "Hello in there," came the petite voice of a woman nearing 60 years old. If she was a day, she really couldn't prevent anyone from leaving on her own. But that was just as true of the others who passed by here. Their abilities relied completely on their willingness to report to those who could act. Dodging detection by these tattletales was the only path to a successful jailbreak. "Hello, ma'am," I replied back, hoping I concealed my utter disdain. Calling me ma'am is unnecessary, but even more, it is unwanted. You make me feel old. My apologies. Nice to see the sun out again, isn't it? She examined me as she asked the question. It was not small talk. She was searching me. Yes, it is. It's been a while. Hopefully, you'll get out to enjoy it. My heart rate began to rise slightly as I replied. Her eyes pierced into mine as I took slow, deliberate breaths to calm myself. I can't imagine I appeared nonchalant, but hopefully, at the very least, I wasn't giving away my intentions. "Well, I have a long day here, so it's hard to say," she said at last. My heart beat began to return to normal. "See you on the next pass." "Yes, on the next pass." "Good day, ma." I caught myself before the word fully formed. "Good day, miss." She smiled at that, turned, and began to slowly walk toward my right, just as the others had. When I heard her steps turn the far corner and vanish, it was time for me to go. I stepped out slowly, looking both ways. The coast was clear, so I hurried to my left, careful not to break into a run, as the sound of my steps might give me away to someone I couldn't see. Around the corner to my right, there was a large desk and 2 chairs. I had discovered that this desk was only occupied 2 days a week. Today was not one of them, so I slipped behind it and waited. Now my heart was racing, but that was of no concern. If I was seen at this point, it was all over anyway. I only needed my nerves to stay intact enough to remember my plan. And if I'm being honest, the adrenaline would help my focus. This next part was crucial. I peeked under the desk and waited. Soon 8 sets of shoes appeared from the direction I needed to go. They would pass this desk and then break off in 2 separate directions, as they always did. I had never seen them, but I could hear them from my cell. If they saw me behind this desk, I was done for. It was the biggest risk to my plan that I was aware of. But they always seemed so engaged in chatting with each other that I felt like it was a risk worth taking. I tried making myself as small as I could and steadied my breathing. One glance in the wrong direction by any of these 8 sets of eyes could cost me everything. I closed my eyes and just listened. It sounded just like it always had. This group was all men. They were young and constantly spoke over each other, trying to one-up the last story, get a bigger laugh, be a bigger idiot. But their youth didn't make them any less dangerous. In fact, it was probably the opposite. They had more to gain by exposing someone like me trying to escape. Thankfully, they seemed to be their normal, obnoxious selves today. They loudly caravanned past me, but then they stopped abruptly. That wasn't normal. Did you hear that? One of them asked no one in particular. The group continued to jabber on. Wait. Shh, he said more forcefully. Panic began to form in my chest. I tried to make myself even smaller and more invisible underneath the desk as I held my breath, desperately trying not to make even a whisper. When the whole group was fully compliant in listening intently, the questioner let out the longest, loudest, most foul flatulence directly at my hiding place. He erupted in laughter as the rest of the group had mixed reactions of laughter or complete disgust, while I did my absolute best to not give myself away. A cough building in my chest as my eyes began to water. At last, the group moved on, splitting into 2 groups of morons, as was the usual course of action. When the sound of both had sufficiently faded, I collapsed onto the floor and allowed myself the smallest of coughs to clear my lungs before peeking out to be certain I was alone. The next doorway I needed was down the hall, where the dangerous imbeciles had come from. Once I went through those doors, I was in foreign territory. I had no idea what the comings and goings would be like, so I'd have to maintain strict diligence of focus. Certain that no one could see me, I crept from my safe zone and stayed low and against the wall, heading to the next door. I put my ear against it and listened. Silence. I cracked it open and slowly entered the next room. To my left was a bank of elevators. To my right, a restroom. But the hallway was empty. I stepped into the open and was deciding on whether an elevator or the stairwell was riskier when I heard voices approaching the door at the far end. Without a thought, I leapt to my right and into the restroom. I pushed a stall door open, closed it quickly behind me, turned the lock, and climbed onto the toilet, using my hands to balance against the walls of the stall, formulating a plan of what to do in the event that the group followed me into the restroom became unnecessary as I heard them pause outside of the door and briefly chat before moving away. I wasn't sure where they had gone, or even if all of them had left. But I had to keep moving. I had no choice. I slipped out of the stall and poked my head out of the restroom. The hallway was once again empty. I decided to take the elevator down. There was an equal chance of an encounter with someone either way, but at least the elevator was faster. I needed luck for this to succeed, at this point anyway, so I pushed the button. The cables and gears of the elevator working sounded as though they were beckoning the whole building to take notice of the fugitive awaiting the doors to open. It felt like days passed, but finally, the elevator arrived. I was prepared to flee to my restroom of refuge if someone was in the car. But fate shined on me and I stepped inside and pushed the fear of having nowhere to run deep inside as the doors closed in front of me. I had to get down 4 floors. If I could do that, I would be able to taste freedom. To this point, my vanishing act seemed to have gone unnoticed. I heard no alarms. No one seemed to be chasing me. The doors opened on the ground floor, and I stepped tentatively out, checking both directions. The lobby that the lift exited to was empty, aside from a few chairs and one low table. There was one guard station I had to get past, and then I simply needed to keep moving, far away from this place. The guard's head was down, distracted by whatever was keeping him glued to his phone. He didn't know me. I could simply walk past him, but even that seemed like a risk. It was not the time to get sloppy. Hugging the wall, I walked closer to the officer until I felt I had no choice but to crouch down. I still needed to move quickly in case anyone from the 4th floor found their way down here, but I'd have to do it from the ground. I laid flat and began to army crawl along the edge of the guard station's massive marble desk. When I'd reached the other side, I edged close to the wall again and inched my way to a standing position and began to walk. "Sir! Hey! Mister! Hey!" Panic. The guard must have finished his TV show at the worst possible time. I glanced back to see him getting out of his seat and coming my way. "Sir, you have to come back. Sir, you can't leave." Bet. I erupted into a sprint down the long hallway with windows on both sides. If anyone from the 4th floor could see me, it was all over. You have to sign out. You can't just leave. Sign out? No way. The guard was gaining on me. He was fast, not like one of those lazy guards you'd see on TV who'd rather eat a donut than do a push-up. He was going to catch me before I could get off the grounds. It was over. I blasted through the door to the outside world and took the steps down 3 at a time. I heard the guard right behind me, closing in fast, just as a car pulled up and screeched to a stop. The door flung open. Get in. I didn't stop to think. I jumped in and was closing the door as the car began to speed away. I glanced back to see the guard cursing and throwing his hands in the air before I turned to the driver. Perfect timing, I grinned. I wasn't sure if you could make it. You have your clubs? Matt's got 'em. He said he'd meet us there. So your boss let you go? Ha! No. But it's fine. No one knows I left. And by the time they find out, it won't raise any suspicions. No way I was missing the first round of spring. I knew it. I told them you'd make it. You just won me $20. Glad I could help you out. Buy me a beer at the turn. Now step on it. I want to putt a few before we have to tee off. Confessionary of a sane person. It all started with the car keys. Right? That's where it began. What happened was, I left for work in the morning, as I always did. Or I should have, were the car keys not missing. So I sat up from my car and went back into my house. I looked at all the usual places. The kitchen counter, the bedroom drawer, the couch. But the damn thing was nowhere to be found. I gave up and finally decided to call my wife. And the goddamn woman had brought my keys with her accidentally. She came back a couple of hours later to give me back my keys. And so I finally left home. Since I was already so late, I figured that if I stopped by a coffee shop, it wouldn't really make a difference. So that's what I did. And that's when everything got worse. After the woman had already finished preparing my order, I discovered I had forgotten my wallet. It's those awkward scenarios you hope never happen to you. Well, it did to me. So I drove back home to look for my wallet. And I went over my house once more. The kitchen counter, the bedroom drawer, the couch. Nowhere. Again. Then I called my wife to see if she had also grabbed my wallet accidentally. She denied it. And, well, you never know with people these days. But I decided to just move on. I went after my neighbor. It must have been an hour or so after I lost my wallet. The last time I saw it was when I was discussing with him in the condo meeting. But that is not the point. Well, I told him about what happened, and I asked politely if he had seen my wallet. But that old man never liked me. He just acted like I accused him of stealing it. That deranged man started screaming like crazy. I always knew he was psychotic, but not on this level. Well, That was it for me. I was sure that the old man had stolen my wallet. So I tried to sneak into his house to get what was mine. It should be a right of a person to retrieve what is theirs. So I tried to enter the house, and he tried to stop me. It turns out that man is not only frail mentally, but also physically, because the old bastard broke his arm. From then on, things got out of hand. A lot of people had to come in, and none of them heard my side of the story. I still think that man stole it, but I can't prove it. Not now. To add insult to injury, he got the condominium trustee to put a restraining order on me. Well, it's not an official one, but the result is basically the same. You see, I am just a sane person living in this mad world and trying to survive, doing my share, not asking for more than what I need. All I look for in this life is peace, but the world keeps getting in my way again and again. I've given up on retrieving my wallet, but I had to stop that man from using my credit card. So I tried to cancel it. But I'm a mere mailman, or I was before I got fired for not showing up on time. They skipped the step where I explained what happened and that I lost my keys and all. But businessmen these days don't care about real people, don't they? Sorry, I lost my line of thought. What was I talking about again? Right, the credit card. I searched for what to do on the internet, as you do these days. And the steps were clear. Contact your issuer, block your card, review recent charges, and get a replacement card. Simple, right? No, I called the issuer, and they said they had to verify my identity as the card holder before taking any action. Which seems fair at first, but then you realize it's a scam, so they don't have to do a damn thing. How did they expect me to remember my parents' full name? These insane people expected me to know my mother's maiden name. What kind of person knows these things? As soon as I called, the first thing I noticed was that this was going nowhere. Well, not really. The first thing I noticed was actually that the man's voice on the hotline sounded exactly like my first grade teacher. Nasty men, I tell you that. But that was a close second. Well, after making all those stupid requests, he finally started to get reasonable. He asked for stuff like my name, address, birthday, the things that a sane person does remember. But it did not last for long. Soon he was asking me about recent transactions. How am I supposed to know? My wife also uses this credit card. Tell me, how was I supposed to know the last purchase was at Sephora? So he got unreasonable again. He asked me for a scanned copy of my driver's license or passport. He said it was for verification purposes, but you never know people's intentions. Have you seen the newspapers exposing these billionaire companies stealing data from common men like me and you In the end, he said he would have to cancel my card because they could not identify the real card holder, which was exactly what I wanted from the very beginning. If these people only listened to me. I lost my line of thought. I was hoping that if I kept talking, it would come back to me. I was trying to look for it as I rambled. Oh yeah, right. Sorry. Now I remember I brought this up because you kind of look like a banker. My old boss looked a lot like you. You remind me of those businessmen on TV. Do you know how to set up a new credit card? I mean, I don't want to go through all that nightmare again. My wife is already angry at me for a lot of things. If you could help me with that, I would be eternally grateful. From the moment you walked into this store, I knew I had to talk to you. You seem like a reasonable person who would help me. Anyway, thank you for choosing McDonald's. Your order is ready for pickup. Will you be paying with cash or credit card? Dead girl walking. Nobody knows that I've been bit. Nobody can know. They'll kill me, and I wouldn't blame them. I wouldn't feel betrayed if my own sister put a gun to my head and pulled the trigger if she found out. I would do the same, because it is the right thing to do, the safe thing to do. So I'm biding my time. It may be selfish what I'm doing, but in this apocalyptic world, it's every man for himself, or every woman, in my case. Hurry up, Nevada. Tristan wants those potatoes by yesterday. We're having a feast. I snap out of my thoughts and go back to peeling the last potato. I'm basically done. Here, take them. She picks up the metal bowl and walks out of the house. All the makeshift houses were built in a big circle after the apocalypse, so we're all like one big family. Our house isn't much. A run-down cabin, really, in the middle of a field that's in the center of the great woods. That's where I was bit. It was my fault, but I just couldn't help myself. Thomas. The very thought of him makes my eyes tear up and makes me reach for my locket. A picture of the two of us on our 2-year anniversary inside. He was one of the first to turn. I visited him often, but I never crossed the electric fence. I sang to him. I talked to him, sure that he was listening. Until one day, I couldn't help myself. 3 days ago, I turned the fence off for a split second in the middle of the night, and I climbed over. I've missed you, I had told him, and he looked at me with pure love until he grabbed me by my wrist and then my waist. Thomas, I screamed, but he never responded. He threw me to the ground, and I realized that he wasn't looking at me with love. He looked at me with hunger, with fury, and he bit me. I screamed and screamed until he let me go, but not before tearing a piece of my midsection out. He felt pity, and he ran. I crawled back through the fence, and I turned it back on. I couldn't get help, so I stitched it up myself. I wrapped it in bandages and threw the bloody shirt far over the fence. I brush my fingers past the stitches as I remember. I wince at the pain. My plan is to wait until the last moment. Then, in the middle of the night, like so many other times, I'll sneak off to the fence. But this time, I'll go over and I won't come back. It's best this way. Nobody has to suffer. They won't kill me or throw me to the zombies before I'm ready. My sister will think I was eaten by a bear. Or maybe they'll tell her that I got drunk and fell off a cliff. She wouldn't be surprised. My lips have touched more whiskey than water since Thomas turned. I walk out of the house and towards the crowd of people gathering in the center of the house circle. A big table is in the very center. I go up to Evangeline, my sister, who is setting up the tables. Why the big celebration? She looks up from the utensils and napkins. He wants to celebrate nobody being infected in the last year. She hesitates. Thomas marks the last person bitten. My eye twitches, but Eva doesn't seem to notice. I walk away from her without another word. I cannot hurt them. I cannot hurt Eva like this. I will leave tonight, after the feast, so I can have one last goodbye. I go back inside our house and get out my best outfit, the only dress that I had left, and my bright diamond heels, the most expensive thing I still had. My mother and father had gifted them to me before they were killed. Not by zombies, by a human, long before the apocalypse even started. I've never worn them to try and preserve them, just in case the apocalypse ever ended. I had a false hope that someday things would be normal again, and I would graduate or have my wedding in diamond heels. But I messed everything up. Eva will get my heels. She's begged for them for years, but I'm wearing them to the feast. Night falls quickly, and the people have put torches up next to every house, and at the corner of the feasting table, I serve myself a tall glass of liquor. I don't want to feel anything when the zombies take me. I can see the townspeople eyeing me and then staring at my drink. Everybody in town knows about me. The girl that used to have the kindest eyes and a bubbling personality. The girl whose eyes have lost their shimmer, whose soul has turned bitter. The girl who kept to herself inside her house and plugged her ears at every town gathering. Until now. It's good to see you, Nevada, Tristan says from behind me. I turn my head around and smile at him. Yes, it is. It's a lovely night that you've arranged for the town. He laughs. It's what I do best, sweets. I smile at that, my nickname since I was a little girl. I'll miss Tristan. He walks over to greet a couple that just approached the table. I look around the field to see happy people, dancing and singing, drinking, eating, and cheering. Oh God, what am I still doing here? It's not just my bite that could infect them. It's me. I've been infecting the town, my sister, and Tristan. I don't fit here anymore. I suck up their happiness. I don't belong. I have to leave right now. I quickly find Eva and ask her to walk with me. What's wrong, Nevada? I flash my most convincing smile at her. Nothing. Just wanted to spend some time with you. She looks at her feet. I love you. You know that, right, kid? I ask her. She looks up at me and smiles. I love you too, no matter what. She hugged me tightly, the first hug she had given me in over a year, and I hugged her back. Listen, Ava, I started. I'm sorry for not being there for her skin. It smells delicious. Her eyes, they're so pretty. I want to know what they would look like in between my teeth. And I bite her, and a couple drops of blood flow from her cheek and into my mouth. I greedily gulp it down, and I crave more. I want to hurt her. I have to hurt her. So I bite deeper, and then she starts to scream. It's an agonizing and ear-piercing scream. I am startled by the scream, and I jump back. And the split second is all I needed to snap out of it. No. No, no. It was never supposed to be like this. I wasn't supposed to hurt her. I run to get help, spitting her blood out of my mouth and wiping my face with my sleeve. I run as fast as I can. Tristan! I scream. Please! Anybody! I need them to kill me, or to help Eva, if they can. Tristan looks up and walks towards me. A crowd gathers around him, muttering, afraid. What is it, Nevada? He asks, obviously agitated. Suddenly the crowd behind him gasps, and Tristan whips his gun out from its holster. I prepare to be shot, but quickly realize he isn't pointing it at me. His gun is pointed at Eva. She is slowly crawling towards us, blood streaming down her face, and an obvious bite marks her cheek. No, don't shoot her, I scream, and try to lunge towards Tristan. She's infected, he says as he shoves me off. Eva looks up at me, hurt. There is agony and fear in her eyes, but the thing that she feels most is clear. Betrayal. Tristan pulls the trigger. Once, twice, and a final time. I fall to the ground beside her. Bullet holes pierce her small body. She's dead. She hasn't turned yet, but they killed her. She's dead forever. What have I done? Tristan and another man drag me off of her. and Tristan pulls me into a tight hug, forcing me to face away from her body. But I feel no guilt anymore. I want to rip Tristan's flesh off of his bones. I want to taste his tendons, his blood. I push away from him. I can't hurt another person. Shoot me, Tristan. He looks at me perplexed. What? No, I'm not going to shoot you. You can't ask me to take your life. I look up at him. No tears in my eyes, no shame, only hunger and rage. I bit her, so shoot me too. Tristan raises his gun again, but hesitates. I'm already turned. It won't kill me. I slide my heels off and place them in the grass. The crowd follows my every move. Bury Evangeline in these. I sit in the grass and nod at Tristan, instructing him to pull the trigger. His hand shakes as he walks towards me, pressing his gun to my temple. Goodbye, Nevada, he says, forcing a smile, but I can see his eyes are full of tears. I look straight into his eyes, and his mention of my name, not my nickname, my old life, snaps me back to reality. I sob, big and ugly sobs, and I only cry harder at the sight of my dead sister. I don't want to be shot, I shout. But Tristan doesn't move his gun. I know. Just close your eyes and don't think about it. I hear a sob creeping into his throat, so I just do as he says. I shut my eyes and wring my hands together. Say hello to Thomas for me, sweets. He whispers in my ear, and everything goes quiet. I wake up to birds chirping, wind blowing through the trees, and the sight of my Thomas. Thomas! I jump up, but I feel a pounding headache. I put my hand to my forehead and feel a steady stream of blood coming from a bullet. But I don't care. Thomas is here. He holds my face. I've missed you, love. Everlasting tears. It's been 20 years since I've seen a human face. They were all obliterated to shreds by that thing. The thing showed no mercy to anyone. Everyone and everything was decimated upon recognition. Everyone, except for me. There was no warning, no sign, nothing. Just absolute destruction. The thing yielded. I was standing there in the middle of a street corner, eyes glued on my phone, and a woman screamed. A scream of absolute terror. A scream that induced physical shock in me. A scream that sounded like the angels of death were coming to take me. Just like that, the woman was scooped up by the thing and taken away to God knows where. Chaos broke out, everyone scrambling to get away. But the thing did not discriminate. It eradicated every item in its path, leaving no room for a human breath. Standing there, unable to move or make a sound, fearing that I'd be its next victim. Quickly as it came, it left, disappearing into nothingness and only leaving debris of a once functional society. I ran as fast as I could. 1, 2, 3 miles until my legs locked and I collapsed from shock and pain. I lay there in my own sweat and salty tears, realizing that everyone was gone. Nothing was left. Not even a speck of dust was spared from the wrath of the thing. Unsure of what to do, I did the only thing my body was capable of. I sob into my hands, loud and uncontrollably. Between sobs are the accusations. This is all my fault. It wasn't. It was completely out of my control. Why didn't it take me? I still wonder that today some may think it was a blessing, but I see it as a curse. I'm all alone, was the last thing that slipped my lips before I lost all hope. The misery and pain started slowly and painfully. I was desperate for a way out. Anything I tried failed. I was stuck in this eternal hell. Next was denial, which struck like a ton of bricks. I was fully convinced that everything happening was a figment of my imagination. I was hallucinating, in a coma, suffering a concussion. Any excuse to justify this dreadful reality. The thing never came back. For so many years, I wished it would. After some time, I became numb to this unfamiliarity of life. To distract myself, I began to explore new places, see the world for what it was, a dry, deserted wasteland with nothing but me. I started playing pretend with my thoughts, tricking myself into believing I was in a place prior to this wretched hell. I created a whole family for myself. My mom was called Helen, and my dad was called Steve. I had 2 siblings. One was called John, and one Wendy. Me and my siblings never got along. Wendy always pulled my hair, and John called me a pea brain. Still, I loved them, and we were a big, happy family. I had gone nuts. I began lurking around empty stores, trying on the newest designer clothes. But were they technically new? And having a mini fashion show to keep myself entertained. I scarfed down any leftover canned food. Electricity didn't work, so I had to eat it cold. Then I sat on the display couch and turned on the TV, which did nothing, wondering what I did to deserve this. I had been a decent human being and achieved the life anyone would want. A stable job, a nice car, and a 2-bedroom apartment. Yet I was still chosen to be the subject of damnation. Eventually, drowned in tears, I dozed off. Sleep was different. The constant night terrors and being unable to escape my dreams tortured me. Every day, the sight of the glistening sun awoke me. I never got used to the ear-piercing screech of silence. Imagining myself in a place of peace and prosperity kept me sane enough. I started hearing things, my brain tricking me and mimicking the voices of my lost friends and family. "Come with us," the voice said. But there was nowhere to go, nothing to do, nothing but me and the voices in my head and the fact that there is no escape. "I'm right here." "No, you're not. Stop playing these cruel tricks on me, brain. You're nothing and nowhere without me. You don't have the right to trick me. I am you. And you are the only thing that feeds my constant pain and misery. Just shut up. I'm watching you." Which was strange, because there is and will always be nothing. Nothing but Mo and the summer breeze, which was a trick, because there was no such thing. No summertime beach days or winter snow days, just constant dead air and murky brown particles circling the atmosphere. If the astronauts came back, they would have thought they landed on the wrong planet. But they never came back. No one did. Not a single soul ever surfaced on Mother Earth again. I made my way to New York. It only took about half a month, but time was useless. The year, month, day, minute, second didn't matter. Time was irrelevant because the only being that existed was irrelevant. Plants, animals, bacteria, anything that was slightly alive were crushed by the thing. The only existence was atoms, stars, space, and Mother Earth. Yet all her life was sucked up by the greedy black mass that consumed her children, driven by a once joyful life and the hope for something new, searching for a sign of anything. I will take anything. O glorious Mother Earth, please feed my quenched need for something more than nothing. Nothing. Just like before I was given nothing. Frustrated, I began to cry, crying like a child who just dropped their lollipop onto the dirty, hot pavement. Between the tears, I heard a plop, then another, and before I knew it, there were thousands of raindrops falling. One by one, Mother Earth has answered my desperate calls with her tears of hope. The dry ground has been nourished with the richness of the tears, and Mother Earth no longer wishes for something to drink. I sit there on my hands and knees, inspecting the once death-filled ground that is now thriving with water. I poke at it and expect dirt as hard as a rock. Instead, I feel the squishiness of mud. It was like touching the cheek of the once flourishing human population. I stare at the mud I had created and let out a scream. The scream echoed across the vast emptiness of the world and bounced back with hope for something new. Something inside of me lit up, and I felt like my heart was going to fly right out of my chest, dance around me, and fly away to the world beyond. Overwhelmed with excitement, I rest my head on the mud, hoping to hear its breathing like it was a newborn baby. I lay there for 1, 2, 3 hours, listening, waiting for something more. The voices no longer taunt me. They cannot patronize me and my thoughts any longer. A deep breath and the sound of nothing filled my ears. Nothing but the sound of the breeze. Mother Earth has given me the milk from her breast and allowed me to suckle on her glorious freedom and chance for something other than nothing. A single tear slipped down my cheek as I cry for the absence of nothing, as I cry for Mother Earth and her generously answering my prayers. I cry for me and for humanity and the thing, which is weird because that thing is the sole reason for my eternal suffering on this glorious planet that was overthrown by death. That did not matter anymore. The only thing that mattered was the spark of hope that ignited the once deceased light bulb.